Morning, all. All right, so a little bit of the news of the day to start today off. I'm not starting off with the Jersey video today. It was announced this morning. This was confirmed this morning. We kind of knew this was going to be the case. Montreal will host the 2022 draft. That will be on July 7th and 8th. So the draft is in July. We are going to have another short off season next year as they continue to try to get things back to normal. But because of the 3-week break for the Olympics, it pushes back the draft and free agency into July next year. Yesterday, when asked, I believe it was Elliot Friedman on 32 Thoughts, at least the interview that's going to be used for 32 Thoughts, Marc-Andre Fleury has admitted that this could be his last year, which isn't really a huge surprise, but it's still newsworthy that he's said, yeah, it could be his last year. I really think it depends on how things go in Chicago. If they play really well, if they make the playoffs and maybe do something in the playoffs, Fleury could probably have his arm twisted to come back for another year. If the year is a complete disaster, Fleury would probably opt to retire. And I would think when he retires, it'll be to Vegas. I would be very surprised if he lived anywhere else when he retires. So the Islanders got all their signings done today. They announced a bunch here. Some of them are re-signings. Timoshov's a re-signing. Koivula's a re-signing. Bardreau's a re-signing. They've also brought in Andy Andreoff, who was Philadelphia property last year. Paul Ledoux, who was Washington property last year, didn't play a game for the Caps, but that's who had his rights. So this is all depth. This is about sending players to the Bridgeport Islanders. They're not the Bridgeport Sound Tigers anymore. They're the Bridgeport Islanders. They went from what was a really kind of fun logo to being a hockey stick. I don't. It's one of those rebrands that you look at and you go, I don't think this is it, guys. So now they're the Bridgeport Islanders, which is fine, but. And I understand that coming up with a really creative logo for Islanders can be difficult, but still. Anyways, Frederic Gauthier has got a professional tryout with the Arizona Coyotes. He was unrestricted this summer, and so he's trying to earn himself a job in Arizona. He's got a good chance. You'd have to think. Arizona, there are definitely some openings there. Also, yesterday, Evander Kane opened up about the gambling problem he's had. And here's the thing. I really hope that this is a sincere acknowledgement and that if he needs the help with the gambling that he says he needs, that he's getting that he's got that, and that gets taken care of. But he basically says, when you've had that big win, you're convinced you can get it again. And he also said he did not bet on NHL games, because if he bets on NHL games, that's a big one. That's potentially out of the league. And it sounds like from the looks of this interview and from what's coming out from the NHL, they weren't able to find any proof of him betting on NHL games. So that should be wrapped up by the time training camp starts, which of course is next week. And it looks like he's good and clear, and he'll be playing for the Sharks again this year. So that's cleared itself up in all likelihood. If it hadn't, you'd have to think that he would have got word and probably wouldn't have sat down for an interview with ESPN. But there he is. Frank Saravalli. This is an interesting report stating that he's heard from GMs around the league that they're looking into and they would like to have a taxi squad, basically of extra goalies. So we had the taxi squad last year, right? That if you're sending guys down to the minors, you have the taxi squad. That's sort of your in between. That's gone this year. There's no taxi squad because that was a nightmare. And it was a necessary nightmare, but still. But they're basically GMs are looking at the situation and thinking, having 3 goalies on the roster is kind of nice, but of course there's salary cap issues if all 3 of them are actually on the active roster. So they kind of want to have a taxi squad for goaltenders. I don't know how this would necessarily work. Because here's the thing, your number 3 goaltender should be your number 1 in the AHL. He should be playing. He shouldn't just be a taxi goaltender. So we'll see how this works. We'll see if this comes to pass. But if a majority of general managers want it, I'm sure the NHL will find a way for it to work. So emergency backup goaltenders everywhere. Probably breathe a little bit of a sigh of relief at the idea that they may not be needed for that role. Ever since the David Ayres story became a story, you could kind of feel like GMs don't really like that. And it's been the case with other emergency backup goalies too, that I don't think GMs necessarily like it. Because you think about it with forwards and defensemen, if a forward got hurt and then they throw a guy on the fourth line that's basically not of NHL caliber for the rest of the game, it would be weird, right? So I think they want to have the right that if you're in a situation like Carolina was, where your starting goaltender gets hurt, your backup goaltender gets hurt as well, that you can bring in a third goaltender that's your goalie, he's under contract, and he is capable of making those saves at the NHL level, and that he is their goaltender, right? So we'll see how this works out, but I totally understand why NHL GMs would want that to be a thing. I was reading around yesterday, so I've been looking at the prime green jerseys. The new Calgary Flame jerseys, the new prime green ones, have texturing to the Flames logo. It looks really, really nice. So I've been trying to figure out how many other jerseys might have texturing. Now, the Adidas website has the new prime green on them, but it looks like they're the same pictures. So since it's all the same pictures, I don't know that they necessarily are pictures of the new jerseys or if they're just pictures of the old ones. And I've heard that there's going to be texturing on various logos, but not all logos you can have like a texturing too. And when I say that, I mean like the Buffalo Buffalo logo that they came out with last year, the really nice textures to it. Think like the Buffalo 50th anniversary that got it all started. So I'm trying to find out which ones have it and which ones don't, and it is difficult finding that information. I'm hoping I have that over the next couple of days, just to let people know, just to let collectors know, hey, so if you're looking for which jerseys you might want to upgrade to a prime green rather than the Aero Ready or Climalite you might have or whatever, I'll let you guys know which ones have actually changed the logo at all. Because other than that, I mean, the materials are basically the same and everything. And the other part of this too is that there seems to be some idea out there that they may go back to a reverse retro setup next year. So the 31 jerseys thing, we may see 32 next year. The idea being that drums up more revenues. And the reason apparently why they didn't do a 32 jerseys idea this year is issues they've had with materials and with production and being able to make that work logistically. So that's why we're not seeing another run on reverse retros or something of that nature. I'd like to see them do something different, to be honest. But they know the reverse retros sell. So I'm just going to go ahead wearing this Islanders jersey now and say, you could do something with this. I also want to say, too, I'm getting ready for the season to start. So I've started buying these. There's a seller on eBay, also through their website. And I've been trying to get as many of these as possible. My idea is that in reviews, when the score's on the board, I'd like to have, when it's the Rangers game, have the Rangers number for their part of the score on the scoreboard at the top. So that's the plan. That's what I'm hoping to get done. And see, it's that Rangers logo. I don't mind using that either. So that'll be kind of fun. And yeah, so going really high tech this year. That's the plan. But we're about 4 weeks out from that. A little bit under 4 weeks, I guess, maybe 3.5. And yeah, then we'll be all set. But next Saturday is the start of the preseason. Yep. So players are arriving in training camp. There's all these training camp stories. They're not on the board because it's all every team that's kind of the same, youthful enthusiasm, and everybody's going to win the cup and everything great. It's a nice time of year. It is a relatively slow time of year, though. We still have not got those UFA signings that we desperately need, and that Eichel trade. It's getting tougher and tougher, and for the RFAs that haven't signed, coming into camp late, you can end up being behind your teammates. So we'll see how that works. But let me know your thoughts in the comment section below as always. Don't forget to hit like and subscribe if you're browsing your way through. You just happened upon this video. Thank you guys so much for watching, for all your support. I will talk to you again soon.